The throne chamber of Ilaris Prime glittered with molten gold and moving light, a place where sound carried like heat through the air. Beneath its vaulted ceilings sat the alien princess Lysara Vare, her crimson armor cracked from battle, her expression carved from pride and exhaustion. Across from her, kneeling beside a tangle of shattered plating and humming circuits, was Chief Engineer Thomas Reddick, the only human allowed within the royal sanctum. His hands, calloused and steady, worked delicately over the seam near her chest plate, where energy conduits had fused. "You're lucky this didn't blow your heart core," he muttered. That was a precision strike. Lysara tilted her head, her long red braids glinting in the candlelight. "Precision is admirable," she said, her tone calm but sharp. "But not always fatal." She studied him for a moment. "Are you always so blunt when addressing nobility?" He didn't look up. "Only when they almost explode on my watch." Her lips curved faintly, but the expression vanished as quickly as it came. The air between them pulsed with quiet tension, broken only by the faint hiss of repair tools. She leaned forward slightly, and the scent of ion metal and something faintly floral filled the air. "You risk much speaking to me so casually," she said. "You risk more," he replied, wearing armor with a destabilized core. Her laugh, low, musical, almost human, echoed softly against the marble. "You have courage," she said. "Or ignorance." "Usually both," he said, finally meeting her gaze. Her eyes, molten gold and utterly alien, held his for a long, unguarded heartbeat. He returned to work, tracing the power lines that ran along her collar plate, rerouting energy through his handheld calibrator. Sparks danced briefly as he sealed the fracture. The soft hum of energy returned to rhythm. "That should do it," he said. "Don't strain the field generator for a few hours. It's fragile." "Like you?" she asked. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "So you fix machines as if mending bones," she said, tilting her head. "Gentle, careful, but you flinch when I look at you." "I don't flinch," he said, his voice low. "I just don't usually have clients with eyes like solar storms." "Then you should look more often," she murmured. "You might learn something about the nature of light." Before he could reply, the door to the hall opened with a hiss. A pair of armored attendants entered, bowing low. "To Your Highness," one said, "the Council of Vera awaits your report. They demand to know how the humans survived the attack." Thomas stood quickly, tension tightening his shoulders. "Demand?" Lysara rose to her full height, taller than him, radiant even under the flickering glow. "The Council will receive what I give them. And as for the human, he survived because he was necessary." She turned slightly, her golden crown catching the light. "Dismissed." The attendants hesitated, then bowed again and withdrew. When the door sealed, she looked at him with quiet intensity. "They distrust you. They distrust everything human," he said. "I'm used to it." "You shouldn't be," she said. "Familiarity with contempt corrodes the spirit," he shrugged. "I prefer to let my work do the talking." "And what does it say?" "That your armor's fixed," he said. "And that maybe you should let someone else wear it next time." Lysara's expression shifted, something between amusement and disbelief. "You suggest I send another to battle in my place?" "If the alternative is getting yourself killed, yeah." She stepped closer, each motion deliberate, predatory. The air thickened between them. "You presume much, Engineer Reddick. I fix what's broken," he said quietly. "That includes bad plans." Her gaze lingered on him, sharp but not hostile. "And if I am the bad plan?" He didn't hesitate. "Then I'll fix you too." The silence that followed was long and electric. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. "You humans are either reckless or fearless. I've yet to decide which." "Depends on the day," he said. "And the princess." Her laughter, genuine this time, filled the chamber. "Careful," she said, turning away. "Flattery is a dangerous tool." "So's honesty," he said. When she left to address the council, Thomas remained, cleaning the tools on his belt. He caught his reflection in the polished marble, tired eyes, soot-stained face, and a half-smile he didn't remember forming. The scent of scorched plasma still clung to the air, mingled with something faintly metallic and sweet. The hum of her repaired armor lingered like an echo, faint but alive. He told himself it was just work, just another repair on another world. But deep down something had shifted. Hours later, the palace lights dimmed to evening hues. Thomas was summoned again, this time to the Hall of Accord where diplomatic ceremonies were conducted. He entered expecting another briefing on battlefield logistics. Instead, the room was empty save for Lysara, seated on the throne of radiant gold, a holographic sigil suspended above her hand. "What's this?" he asked cautiously. "A binding," she said, "an ancient custom." She rose, the air shimmering around her as the sigil spun. "You repaired more than armor today, Thomas Reddick. You restored balance to the field between my body and the core. Such an act carries significance." "Significance?" he repeated. "As in what kind of significance?" "Symbolic, cultural, legal." She stepped closer. "You repaired the sacred conduit between royal blood and the Dominion's heart. By our law, that act is reserved for a consort," he blinked. "A consort?" "Yes," she said simply. "A partner bound in trust and spirit." "That's a misunderstanding," he said quickly. "It was an accident." "All truths begin as accidents," she said. "Yours simply happened to save a world." The holographic sigil flared, light spilling across the chamber. "By the right of repair," she said, her voice steady, "I name you consort of the Veyron line." The words hung in the air, heavy as stone. Thomas stared at her, speechless. "You can't be serious." "I never jest," she said. "Not with matters of law or heart." The sigil dissolved, leaving silence in its wake. "Congratulations," she said softly, almost smiling. "You have just become the most envied and hated human in the Dominion." He exhaled slowly, dragging a hand across his face. "Yeah," he muttered. "That sounds about right." Her laughter, quiet and luminous, followed him out of the chamber as the great doors closed behind him. That night, in the quiet of his quarters, Thomas sat staring at the silver insignia, now embedded in his wrist, a mark that glowed faintly whenever he thought of her voice. He couldn't tell whether it was a curse or a miracle. All he knew was that his life, once a pattern of routine and repair, now hummed to a rhythm that wasn't entirely his own. And somewhere deep within the palace, Lysara stood at her balcony, fingers brushing her armor's restored seam, smiling faintly. "Consort," she whispered to the stars, tasting the word as though it were a promise and a challenge both. The next morning began with the sound of bells echoing through the upper spires of Ilaris. Prime, a sound that once signaled triumph but now carried confusion. Word of the human consort had spread across the Dominion like wildfire. The courtiers whispered behind polished doors, nobles demanded clarification, and the Council of Vera had summoned emergency sessions that ran through the night. Thomas, meanwhile, was trapped in a storm of ceremonial chaos. He stood in a dressing chamber larger than any ship hangar he'd ever worked in, surrounded by attendants fitting him with layers of ceremonial fabric, threaded with luminous fibers. They spoke in hushed tones, glancing at him with both curiosity and suspicion. Every so often, one of them would brush his shoulder and murmur something about the accident made sacred. He didn't understand half of it, but the weight of their reverence, or perhaps pity, was unmistakable. "If I sneeze, will they record it as prophecy?" he muttered under his breath. "If you do, they might," came a familiar voice. Lysara entered the chamber, the gold in her armor replaced by deep crimson ceremonial plating. Her crown glowed faintly in the filtered sunlight. "You should wear it with pride," she said, nodding toward the robe the attendants had draped over him. "It represents unity between our species." "It represents me looking like I fell into a light show," he said dryly. She smirked. "Humor, your most unpredictable weapon." "Second to bad decisions," he replied. "We all have talents," her tone softened. "The Council wants to see us together. They question the legitimacy of the right. You'll need to stand beside me." "You mean as your consort?" "As the man who stabilized the Dominion's core," she corrected. "Titles matter little beside truth." They walked through the palace corridors together. Servants and guards stopped and bowed as she passed, their eyes flickering toward him in disbelief. The marble halls gleamed beneath molten light, every wall engraved with the lineage of her people. "You don't seem bothered by any of this," he said quietly. "The whispers, the uproar. A queen must be her own silence," she said. "If I listen to noise, I'll forget the melody." "Sounds lonely," he murmured. "It is," she admitted. The council chamber loomed ahead, vast and radiant, its ceiling carved to mimic constellations. Rows of very nobles sat in semicircular tiers, their ceremonial veils pulsing faintly with light. The air shimmered with tension as they entered. Lysara ascended the central dais, while Thomas stood a few steps behind her. The High Arbiter, his voice layered with harmonic resonance, spoke first. "Your Highness," he said, "by invoking the right of repair, you have bound yourself to an alien. Do you deny this?" "I do not," she said, her tone calm and commanding. "His act restored my life and the Dominion's balance. The bond is truth, not ceremony." A murmur rippled through the chamber. One councillor rose, veil flickering in agitation. "Humans are chaos made flesh. Their science defies harmony. You risk contamination of our core." Thomas stepped forward before he could stop himself. "With respect," he said, "your core nearly collapsed because it was too rigid. Harmony doesn't mean standing still. It means adjusting to what's real." A wave of gasps echoed through the chamber. Lysara's lips curved slightly. "For you hear him," she said. "The human speaks our truth better than you." "Or twists it," the Arbiter said sharply. "Words are fragile." "So are civilizations," Thomas replied, his voice firm. "Especially ones afraid to evolve." Silence hung for several heartbeats. Then Lysara lifted her hand and light flared around her. "The Dominion was not forged by fear," she said. "It was forged by those who dared to touch the unknown and call it kin. That is what this alliance means. That is what this human has reminded us of." The air hummed with energy, a resonance that made the chamber vibrate faintly. One by one, the councillors lowered their veils in acknowledgement. The Arbiter bowed his head slightly. "Then let the record show the bond stands," he said. "But know this, Your Majesty, change brings storms." Later, as the chamber emptied, Thomas let out a long breath. "You know," he said, "I could have done without being publicly threatened in 4 languages. You handled them well," she said. "They will test you again." "Great," he muttered. "Something to look forward to." She smiled faintly. "You think this is a burden," she said softly. "It's survival. For you or me. For both." Her gaze softened. "Come, there's something I must show you." They descended into the lower levels of the palace, areas few had ever seen. The air grew cooler, denser, thrumming faintly with energy. At last, they reached a circular chamber lit by veins of molten gold running along the walls. In the center stood an enormous crystalline sphere, pulsing, alive. "The core of the Dominion," she said. "It binds every city, every mind, every breath of my people." "I've heard about it," he said. "Didn't believe it was real." "It responds only to the ruling line," she said, "until you touched it." He frowned. "When I repaired your armor." "Yes," she said. "The core recognized your frequency. It adapted." "Adapted how?" "It now sings in 2 voices," she said. "Mine and yours." He stared at the core. Its pulse matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. "That's not possible." "It is," she said. "You changed it." "That's not good," he said. "Your people won't like—" "It doesn't matter what they like," she interrupted. "The core responds to truth, not approval." She stepped closer to him, her voice quieter. "Do you know what this means?" "That I broke your universe?" "That you expanded it," she said. The hum of the core deepened, resonating like a living song. It filled the room, brushing against his skin like static. He felt it, her presence woven through it. "Lysara," he said softly, "what happens now?" She looked up at him, her expression somewhere between awe and fear. "Now we find out what kind of song we've created." They left the chamber in silence. Above them the city glowed faintly, unaware that its very heartbeat had changed. But word traveled fast in the Dominion, and by dusk rumors spread again, of a core that pulsed with alien rhythm, of a queen and her consort whose hearts beat in unison. And somewhere high in the spire, Lysara stood before the balcony, feeling that shared pulse echo beneath her armor. "You've tangled your fate with mine, human," she whispered. "May the stars forgive us, or learn to sing with us." The palace of Ilaris Prime never truly slept. Even in the deepest hours of the night, its spires shimmered with living light, fed by the great core's constant hum. But that night, the glow had changed. Where once the walls pulsed in a single, regal rhythm, now 2 overlapping frequencies sang softly, One alien, ancient and ordered, the other human, chaotic and warm. The Dominion had never heard such music before, and neither had its queen. Lysara stood at the high balcony of her chambers, clad in a thin ceremonial cloak that rippled like molten gold in the starlight. The twin moons hung above, their light reflected in the faint metallic sheen of her skin. For hours she had been listening, not to the world outside, but to the pulse within her chest. It beat in sync with something foreign, something alive and stubbornly mortal. It frightened her in ways no blade or fleet ever had. She turned at the faint sound of footsteps. Thomas entered quietly, the soft hiss of the door closing behind him. He still wore his engineer's uniform, smudged with grease and solder burns. "You sent for me?" he asked. She nodded, gesturing toward the night beyond. "Do you hear it?" He frowned. "The hum?" "The harmony," she corrected softly. "My world breathes differently now. The air sings with a rhythm that wasn't here before." He joined her at the balcony, leaning on the rail. "You mean me?" "I mean us," she said. "The core feels you as it feels me. It responds to your pulse. When you dream, it dreams with you." He blinked. "That sounds invasive." "It sounds alive," she said. "And that is what terrifies the Council." She turned to face him fully. "They will not allow this to continue. They fear what they cannot control." "And what do you think?" he asked. "I think they are right to be afraid," she said. "The Dominion has survived by perfect symmetry. You are asymmetry given flesh. You defy order itself, and yet—" Her voice trailed off. "Yet," he pressed, "yet the core chose you. As I did." He looked at her, uncertain whether she meant that literally or figuratively. "If it helps," he said. "I didn't exactly plan any of this." "Neither did I," she said, stepping closer. "But plans are for those who fear discovery." Her gaze softened. "You, Thomas Reddick, are discovery itself. Reckless, imperfect, human, and the reason the stars sing differently." Before he could find an answer, the chamber door hissed open again. A guard bowed low. "Your Majesty, there has been movement. The outer colonies are refusing synchronization. They claim the core's new frequency is an abomination." "Prepare my ship," she said immediately. "We leave at dawn." "Dawn?" Thomas said. "You're going to face them in person?" "If I do not, they will destroy the core before understanding it," she replied, "and that I will not allow." "Then I'm coming with you." "You will remain here," she said firmly. "You are the spark. If I fall, the song must live on." He shook his head. "You don't get it. I didn't fix your armor to watch you walk into another war." "You forget your place, consort," she said sharply, but her voice wavered. He met her gaze. "Yeah, I probably did. But I'm not your subject, Lysara. I'm your partner. At least that's what your people keep calling me." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the core far below. Then slowly she smiled, tired, rueful. "You win," she said. "You always do." When dawn came, their ship, the Sol Ascendant, rose from the palace's upper docks. It cut through the clouds like a shard of light, its engines harmonized to the core's dual frequency. Lysara stood at the command deck, armor gleaming in the rising sun, while Thomas manned the auxiliary systems, surrounded by consoles that buzzed in languages he didn't quite understand. "Remind me why we're not sending an army?" he asked. "Because armies destroy, I intend to convince." "With what?" "Truth," she said simply. "And if truth fails?" "Then we improvise," she said. He couldn't help smiling. "Now you're starting to sound human." The journey to the outer colonies took less than 2 cycles. The rebel world of Dareth loomed beneath them, a ringed planet of crimson storms and jagged cities. They descended into the atmosphere, the ship buffeted by turbulence. "They've activated planetary disruptors," Thomas said, scanning the console. "They're trying to blind our approach." "Then we blind them first," Lysara said. "Prepare the harmonic flare." He hesitated. "That's experimental tech." "You invented it," she reminded him. "Have some faith in your chaos." He grinned. "You're learning fast." He initiated the flare. A burst of golden blue light erupted from the ship, rippling through the clouds in concentric waves. The disruptor fields faltered, then went dark. Below, the rebel citadel glowed faintly as their defenses overloaded. "Direct hit," Thomas said. "They're open." "Then we go down," she said. They landed on a plateau overlooking the capital. The air was thick with dust and tension. Waiting for them were hundreds of Very soldiers in crimson armor, the sigil of the old order emblazoned on their chests. At their head stood Archlord Dorithian, one of the eldest nobles, his voice amplified through resonance implants. "You bring the human," he said, disdain dripping from every syllable. "The infection itself." "I bring the future," Lysara replied. "You bring decay." "You speak of future," he sneered, "yet you share your pulse with corruption." "You have diluted our song." "No," she said, "I have made it whole." The rebels raised their weapons, energy blades humming to life. Thomas stepped forward, his hands raised. "You don't have to do this," he said. "The core isn't dying. It's changing. You can feel it, can't you? The new rhythm." Some of the soldiers hesitated. The air itself vibrated faintly, that same dual pulse radiating outward. The core's distant hum reached even here, faint but undeniable. "It's alive," he said, "and it's singing to you too." Dorithian snarled. "Lies." "The core obeys no alien." He raised his hand and the ground shook. Energy rippled outward, striking the ship and knocking Thomas backward. Lysara caught him before he fell. "Stay down," she said. "I told you I'm not—" "Not what?" she said, her eyes flashing gold. "Fragile." He smirked, despite the chaos. "I was going to say obedient." She stepped forward, her armor igniting with light. "You call yourself pure," she said, voice amplified by the resonance amplifiers. "But purity without compassion is stagnation." The core chose balance. "Deny it, and you deny the Dominion's breath itself." Dorithian lunged, his energy blade slashing toward her, but she moved faster. Their weapons met with a blinding flare. Sparks cascaded across the plateau. Thomas scrambled to his feet, grabbed a fallen pulse rifle, and fired at the resonance amplifiers surrounding the citadel. The explosion rippled through the air, destabilizing Dorithian's power field. Lysara struck once, clean, decisive. His blade shattered, his body collapsing in silence. When the dust settled, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The air shimmered as the core's song grew louder, clearer, enveloping the battlefield in a harmony that resonated in bone and blood alike. Lysara turned to them. "The Dominion does not belong to fear," she said. "It belongs to all who have the courage to breathe." By the time they returned to orbit, the rebellion had ended without another shot fired. As the Sol Ascendant rose above Dareth's clouds, Thomas watched the red storms fade below. "So that's diplomacy," he said. "With explosives," she replied. "Your kind calls it negotiation." He laughed softly. "I guess we make a good team." "We are more than that," she said. "We are proof." Later, as the ship entered the light of Ilaris Prime's twin suns, Lysara glanced at him. "You realize the Council will never forgive this." "Then they'll have to adapt," he said. "Like everything else." "You sound like the core," she murmured. "Maybe it's rubbing off on me." She smiled faintly. "Then may it never stop." The return to Ilaris Prime was not the homecoming of heroes that Thomas had imagined. The ship descended through clouds bruised by dusk, its hull scorched from atmospheric re-entry. The city below glowed with soft amber light, but the atmosphere was uneasy. Every citizen had heard of the core's shifting resonance. Every palace corridor thrummed with anxious whispers. As the Sol Ascendant docked, an honor guard awaited, too formal, too tense. Thomas knew a trap when he saw one. "They're not smiling," he muttered. "Very don't smile," Lysara replied, her face composed. "Not unless they mean it." "Then I'd feel a lot better if someone did." "Then you must keep breathing," she said, stepping past him. "I'll handle the rest." They entered the great hall of radiance, an expanse of marble and light, its ceiling etched with constellations depicting the Dominion's founding myths. The council was assembled, every member veiled in shimmering gold. The High Arbiter rose from his seat, voice like static over crystal. "Your Majesty," he said, "you bring chaos back to our gates. You allow an alien to dictate the pulse of the core. You risk annihilation for affection." Lysara's armor caught the dim light as she stopped at the dais. "I bring survival," she said. "And I bring truth." "Truth?" Another counselor hissed. "You mean contamination." Thomas stepped forward before she could speak. "You keep calling it that," he said. But your core was dying before I ever touched it. You just didn't notice. Human, the Arbiter said coldly. You speak out of turn. Yeah, Thomas said. I get that a lot. A murmur rippled through the chamber, scandalous and sharp. Lysara hid a small smile. He speaks as he repairs, she said. Directly. Directness is dangerous, the Arbiter said. So is denial, Thomas countered. Your system failed because it was perfect, and perfection doesn't bend. It breaks, humans bend. We survive. The Arbiter's eyes flickered behind his veil. Survival is not the same as wisdom. Maybe not, Thomas said, but it's the only reason I'm standing here. The silence that followed was heavy and alive. Then Lysara spoke. Enough, she said. The Dominion will not be ruled by fear of its own heartbeat. The core has changed, and so have we. Then prove it, the Arbiter said. Let us see this harmony you claim unites us. Lysara turned to Thomas. Can you link with me again? She asked. You mean sync with the core? No, she said quietly. With me. He hesitated, then stepped forward. As he touched the plating near her chest, the air shimmered. The resonance pulsed outward in golden-blue waves, filling the hall. The lights flickered, the marble beneath their feet glowing faintly. The core's pulse echoed through every wall, spreading through the palace, the city, the planet itself. The song that followed was haunting and beautiful, two distinct tones intertwining into one impossible chord. The councillors fell silent. Some wept, others bowed. The Arbiter trembled. It sings, he whispered. It lives, it grows, Lysara said. And growth is life. The resonance faded, leaving behind a hush so complete it felt sacred. You see, Lysara said softly, change need not destroy. The Arbiter lowered his veil. Perhaps, he said, or perhaps it is merely the calm before collapse. Then we will meet collapse with open eyes, she said. That is the difference between stagnation and evolution. The council adjourned in uneasy silence. When they were gone, Lysara turned to Thomas. You have changed my people's history, she said. I didn't mean to, he replied. All the best revolutions start that way. Later, in her private chambers, the tension finally broke. Lysara removed her armor piece by piece, revealing the intricate bioluminescent markings along her skin, patterns that pulsed faintly in rhythm with the core. Thomas watched as the light reflected off her face, softer now, human in its fragility. You could have executed me back there, he said quietly. Several times. I could have, she said, but then who would keep me honest? He smiled faintly. That's one way to put it. You misunderstand, she said, stepping closer. You are not my prisoner, Thomas Reddick. You are my reflection. He frowned. That's poetic and confusing. Then I'll explain, she said. The core sings because you taught it to breathe. You broke its symmetry and gave it motion. You showed me that stillness is another word for death. And you showed me that chaos can have purpose, he said. So maybe we're even. No, she said. We're just beginning. She turned toward the balcony where the stars burned brighter than usual, their light bending faintly as the core's new resonance rippled across the system. They will come for us, she said. Others who fear what we've done. Then we'll be ready, he said. You make it sound simple. It's not, he said. But it's worth it. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the twin moons. Do you regret it? What, saving your life? He said. Or accidentally getting married to an alien princess? Her lips curved slightly. Both. No, he said. Maybe neither. That is not an answer, she said. It's the only one I've got. A faint tremor shook the floor, subtle but deliberate. The core's tone shifted slightly, low warning. Lysara's expression hardened. Someone's tampering with the outer grid, she said. They're trying to isolate the core. Can they? He asked. Not easily, she said. But if they succeed, the resonance will collapse. Then we stop them. Together? She asked. Always, he said. They raced through the palace corridors, the hum of the core deepening beneath their feet. Energy lights flickered as security drones converged on the central vault. When they arrived, a group of rogue engineers were already inside, hacking into the harmonic conduits. You don't understand, one shouted. The core isn't harmony, it's infection. It will consume us. You think life is infection? Thomas shouted back. Then maybe you're already dead. The rogue turned his weapon toward him, but Lysara stepped between them. No more fear, she said, and raised her hand. The core answered her call, light cascading through the chamber like a living tide. The energy washed over the rebels, disarming their weapons, flooding the room with warmth instead of pain. The rogue fell to his knees, shaking. "What are you?" he whispered. "Alive," she said. Finally. When it was over, the core's hum softened again, steady and whole. The rebels were escorted away, not as prisoners but as witnesses. Lysara looked at Thomas, her shoulders heavy with exhaustion. "It's over," she said. "For now," he said. "You know they'll try again." "Then we'll teach them to listen," she said. "Even the stars need reminders." He studied her, the glow from the core painting her in light. "You're really something, you know that." "So are you," she said quietly. "Even if you never meant to be." That night, as the twin moons rose higher, they stood together beneath the balcony once more. The hum of the core was now part of the wind itself, steady and alive. "You've changed my world," she said. "You've changed mine," he replied. "Then perhaps we are both guilty," she said. "And both free." The stars pulsed faintly, as though in agreement. The dawn that followed was unlike any other in the history of Alaris Prime. The twin suns rose in unison, casting the city in golden roselight, and for the first time, the hum of the Dominion's core extended beyond the palace walls. The resonance touched every spire, every street, every life form connected to the Dominion's vast neural lattice. Farmers in the outer plains stopped their work to look up at the sky. Artisans in the glass towers paused mid-stroke as their tools vibrated softly with new rhythm. The universe itself seemed to breathe alongside them. But within the palace, peace was fragile. The chamber of the core thrummed with contained energy, the air thick with both reverence and fatigue. Lysara stood at the base of the great sphere, her hands resting against its cool, pulsing surface. "It's stabilizing," Thomas said, reading the fluctuating data from a portable analyzer. "Resonance output is up 13%. Neural latency's dropping. Whatever we did yesterday, it's working." "You mean whatever you did," she said without turning. "You bled into the core again. You anchored it." "We anchored it," he corrected softly. "That's the point, right?" Two notes in the same song. "Two notes," she repeated. "Yes." Her reflection glimmered across the crystalline sphere, but the expression it mirrored wasn't pride. It was something more fragile. "You sound like you're doubting it," he said. "Not doubting," she murmured. "Remembering. The Dominion has lived for thousands of cycles on the belief that purity equals survival. Now it must live with the truth that difference is the only reason we endure. And you're the one leading them into it," he said. "That's what scares you." "Not them," she said quietly. "Me." She turned to face him. "If I am wrong, if this harmony fails, the collapse will be my doing. Then we rebuild it again," he said. "That's what humans do best. Screw up, start over, make it better." Her lips curved faintly. "A philosophy of imperfection. A philosophy of persistence," he said. "Imperfection's just proof that we're still trying." The air shimmered as the core's hum deepened, a shift that made the ground vibrate faintly. The sound wasn't danger, it was awakening. Lysara stepped closer to him, the light casting shifting patterns across her silver eyes. "You never stop surprising me," she said. "You keep expecting me to," he replied. "That's the surprise." Her laughter was soft, the sound of glass touched by wind. "The Council has asked for another assembly," she said. "They wish to see proof that the new resonance has not corrupted the core." "Then let's give them proof," he said. Real proof. That evening, the great hall filled once more with light and apprehension. Representatives from every Dominion world gathered under the vaulted ceiling. For the first time, humans stood among them, engineers, diplomats, soldiers. The chamber was alive with color and tension. Lysara stood before them, regal and calm, while Thomas worked at a console beside the dais, linking the palace's amplifiers to the core. "Citizens of the Dominion," Lysara began, her voice amplified by the resonance itself. "We have lived in balance for millennia. But balance without movement becomes stillness, and stillness becomes death. The core has changed because we have changed. Its new song is not corruption, it is evolution." She raised her hand and the core's light filled the chamber. "This is what we have become," she said. "Human and Veri, chaos and order, two heartbeats merged." Thomas activated the amplifier. The floor shimmered and sound flooded the hall, a symphony of tones that defied language. The air vibrated with it, a harmony that resonated in the bones of every being present. The walls themselves seemed to breathe. Faces that had been rigid with fear softened, eyes widened, and even the High Arbiter bowed his head. When the final tone faded, silence fell, a silence filled not with unease but awe. "The core lives," Lysara said, "and so does the Dominion, not through conquest but through connection." One of the younger counselors rose, her voice trembling. "Your Majesty, what name shall we give this new era?" Lysara looked toward Thomas. "It began when two voices became one," she said. "Let it be called the Age of Resonance." The words echoed like a benediction. The crowd bowed. For the first time in centuries, there was no dissent. Afterward, when the hall emptied and the light dimmed, Thomas found her standing by the balcony overlooking the endless city. The stars had come out, scattered like embers across the sky. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she replied. "No," he said quietly. "You led them. You gave them something to believe in again." "Belief is fragile," she said. "It must be protected carefully." "So must you," he said. She smiled faintly. "And who will protect you, my consort?" "I'll improvise," he said. "Seems to work." Her laughter was quiet and real. "Always improvising," she said. "Always human." They stood in silence, watching the twin suns sink below the horizon. The air between them pulsed softly with shared resonance. "You could go home, you know," she said. "Earth calls to you." "Home's where the work is," he said. "Besides, your world still needs fixing." "It always will," she said. "That's what makes it beautiful." He looked at her, the starlight reflecting in her golden armor. "So then I guess I'm staying. You'd defy your own people?" "I'd defy anyone who told me not to finish what I started." The stars shimmered brighter, as if the universe were listening. She reached out, taking his hand, and the resonance flared faintly between their palms. "You realize," she said softly, "that history will call you something." "A fool?" "A bridge," she said. "Between species. Between songs." "Bridges break," he said. "Only if no one crosses them," she replied. He laughed, the sound merging with the wind. "You're getting good at this metaphor thing." "You're getting good at being impossible," she said. Down below, the core sent out another pulse, a wave of light and sound that traveled across the world, through its atmosphere and into the void between stars. On distant colonies, farmers felt the hum in their tools. Children laughed as the walls of their homes vibrated with faint music. For the first time, the Dominion's communication network carried not just data, but song, a literal harmony shared across worlds. The core had become what it was always meant to be: connection. Much later, in the quiet before sleep, Thomas stood once more in the workshop where it had all begun. The tools still lay scattered on the bench, his original repair kit gleaming faintly. He picked up the cracked clasp from her old armor, the one that had started everything, and smiled. "You know," he murmured, "I really need to stop fixing things that talk back." From behind him, her voice came soft and teasing. "Careful," she said. "That part's still sensitive." He turned, laughing as she stepped into the light, her eyes gleaming brighter than any star. Outside, the core sang quietly to the universe, a duet of chaos and order, of fragility and strength, of humanity and the divine. The galaxy had changed its song forever, and in its new rhythm 2 hearts beat as one.